everybody. I'm Olivia F. Scott, the creator of Freedom at the Mat, a safe and sacred place for women to find their peace, find their freedom, and improve their health and wellness. We're so proud to offer expert conversations with helpful information, movement sessions, and a community of like-minded women. So if this content speaks to you, subscribe, like, and share these videos. So today, we're going to be in conversation with the world's #1 yogi, okay? She is New Orleans' #1 yogi. Her name is Ajax Jaxon. She is the founder and the owner of Magnolia Yoga, right? This woman is just epic, so listen in. Hi, everybody. I'm Olivia F. Scott, the creator of Freedom at the Mat. And today I have a real treat for you. I'm in my workout clothes. Hopefully you're getting yours, get inspired, because we're going to talk about hot yoga with New Orleans' #1 yogi, the world's #1 yogi, Ajax Jaxon. She's a founder and the owner of Magnolia Yoga. You know, she has created something that is monumental and revolutionary. Magnolia Yoga is Louisiana's first Black-owned yoga studio, Magnolia Yoga, right here in New Orleans. Ajax Jaxon, better known as Ajax, is a yogi with 2 decades of yoga teaching experience. She has used yoga as a modality for healing. It's a healing art form that she used to help her quit smoking, manage her weight, keeping it sexy, like me, health and joint pain, improve her relationship with herself and her family, eliminate her asthma condition, her migraines, and also strengthen her resolve and confidence. Through Magnolia Yoga, the world traveler has become quite a force in the New Orleans area as well as Louisiana as a beacon for others to use yoga for their personal good as well. Navigating the world with an extensive background in arts education, a degree from the University of Southern California in cultural anthropology, and it's important for me to pause there as an educator as well. She's not just a yogi, she's also very well educated and very well traveled, having traveled to over 20 countries around the world, finding her purpose and place within it. We're grateful that she's with us today to explain some gems about hot yoga, because I know a lot of us are like, I don't want to do it, it's too hot. So, Ajax, are you with us today?
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you for joining us. I know you've had a very busy morning. We're filming this on a Saturday, and you've been in the studio already all morning teaching multiple classes and managing your teachers teaching classes. So thank you for your time. I want to talk about hot yoga today, right? I'm a yogi as well, and I have found my way into hot yoga, but I know that there are plenty of people that when you say the word yoga, they're like, But when you say the words hot and yoga together, they're just like, absolutely not. So I want to start just understanding more about you as a yogi. I find that every yogi that I've ever met in my life, there's a story about how they first encountered yoga. So how did you find yoga?
Yes, thank you for that incredible introduction. I don't think I've had an introduction that incredible in my life, so I appreciate it. I, you know, you remember that book and that movie, The Secret?
Yes.
And so one of the things that really stood out for me from that book and that film was that the universe loves spontaneity. And that stuck with me to this day. And I found yoga through a spontaneous moment that the universe liked, and granted me this incredible art form and this new life that I was not doing beforehand. I was living in Brazil at the time,
Hmm.
finishing out kind of a Peace Corps uh, project. And I didn't come home for Thanksgiving that year. I didn't come home for Christmas that year. And so I surprised my family and my then boyfriend for New Year's. And so it was a last minute decision to fly from Brazil all the way to Los Angeles. I planned it. It was a great surprise. My best friend helped me plan it because it's through many time zones. I was trying to get there by New Year's Eve. And I did. And it was a great surprise. Had a great New Year's Eve time. And then New Year's Day, my boyfriend at the time said, let's go do some yoga. And as I remind people all the time, all you need to do yoga is an open mind. I had an open mind about it. I said, sure, let's go. I did not know it was heated. I did not know it was 90 minutes long. I just said yes. And, you know, that month that I was in Cali, which is my home state, I did it almost every day. I didn't really understand why, because it was hard. I was sore. I could barely walk, but something kept getting me to go back. And so that's how I really started, was through spontaneity, missing my family and friends, being open, being in love, and kind of just going with the flow. I didn't think about it a lot. I just kept going that month. I learned the postures. And when I went back to complete my work in Brazil, I continued to practice on the beach and in my apartment. And that was the beginning of it, you know.
So that was the beginning. And thank you. I never knew that story. Wonderful what some boys can lead us to find in our lives, right? So wonderful you had a good boy at that time. So let's talk about from there till now. So you started doing yoga every single day. It became addictive, became something that was just repetitive, part of your routine, part of your life. You couldn't get enough of it. And then you said, I'm going to create a studio, right? Why did you create Magnolia? And then why did you create Magnolia in New Orleans? What was the intentionality for both?
Yeah, it was such a great question to ask me, because I've had some time to think about it a little bit. So I had been an educator, as you mentioned, in California predominantly. I got laid off, and I had turned 30 and got laid off. And I remember being in my final savasana, reflecting on the last 30 years of my life, and projecting what are the next 30 going to be like. And I thought, well, they say do what you love, and I love this yoga. And so that is when I made the decision to do an international teacher training, very expensive, very intense. Um and really kind of the next phase to my life, that I really didn't know at the time. Um I did find out through my favorite teacher how much money can be made, how you can sustain yourself with this kind of lifestyle as an owner. And I did plant that seed of like, well, hey, if I can do what I love, help other people, and make a living off of that, then I'm willing to do this. You know, it felt like a really good plan, really good life plan. So you know, and that's, I mean, I can just share with you really quickly that like that is the main impetus for doing the hot yoga, is I learned of all the medical benefits. I'll talk a little bit more about it, I'm sure, later, but I'll mention it now that, you know, diabetes was on both sides of my family, and how we often hear your family wants you to do better than them. And usually that better means better money, better education, but for me, it meant better health. You know, I grew up with two amazing parents who unfortunately had a lot of medical issues. My mother had migraines, and she essentially had a hysterectomy. My father had a stroke, he had diabetes, and I didn't want any of that. So when I learned that hot yoga specifically could help me prevent those things, I was 28 years old when I started, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this thing. So that was the main impetus for doing it in the first place. Losing my job and education helped me consider it seriously. And I remember, Olivia, a roommate of mine in LA, before the layoff, said, hey, you really seem to like this yoga thing. Maybe you should become a teacher. And I literally laughed in her face. And I thought it was the most insulting thing, because I'm like, I have a degree from USC. Like, I'm making almost $100,000 as an educator. Like, I would never become a little yoga teacher, you know? And I mean, so I really had a whole different perspective on it. Anyhow, so I got into it regularly to prevent illness that I saw my family fight through. And then I considered it as a career when I lost my career in education. And I considered opening a studio. But my God, that was a long time ago. It took a lot of work to get to Magnolia Yoga Studio in New Orleans.
Well, see, that's what I want to get into, right? Because I'm in New Orleans and I've been here for right at 4 years, and I have finally accepted the reality of something you shared with me very early on, that wellness and New Orleans are not synonyms in any way, right? It's just New Orleans is definitely a wonderful, fun, food, festival centric place, but as it relates to fitness, not really up on the top priority. So, why did you choose New Orleans? And when you talk about all the hard work, which is why I give you your flowers, because having created and sustained a yoga studio, period, for how long now? So 8 years, that's like flowers. And then secondly, for you to have created a studio specifically for black and brown people, even more flowers. You get 3 dozen of virtual flowers right now. So tell me a little bit before we go into the detail about hot yoga, because I want to get there. Why did you choose New Orleans? Tell us all. Why did you choose New Orleans for your studio? Because you were in California. You could have chosen anywhere.
Yeah, I could have chosen anywhere. Well, it was a piece of my destiny was waiting for me here. There's no doubt. Yoga has allowed me, because it's a holistic approach, it has allowed me to really, think of myself, honor myself, live my life as a whole person. So I say that because there's a big piece of me that loves music, that loves culture, that loves celebrating, and that we're here in a mecca for that, right? So
Yeah.
there's that piece. I had been really kind of only doing yoga, talking about yoga, teaching yoga, being a yogi. It's like, I laugh, it's sweet for you to say, like, she's like the number one yogi in the world, and it's like, I kind of understand what you mean by that, because no, I'm not the number one yogi in the world. However, it was my world, and it still is
Right.
a big part of my world. But before I moved to New Orleans, it was the only part of my world. And I was suffering from that. I needed to add to other areas of my life. So I came to New Orleans to feed other areas of my life that had been neglected, knowing that I have this huge passion for something that may not be here. And so I felt like it was a good exchange. I still feel like it's a good exchange. And the other piece to that is that I was very cognizant, because my mother's Mexican American, my father was African American. So I was very aware of our health outcomes, our risks, our issues in as minorities. And again, I knew this thing would help. It was helping me. Um, and I just felt very inspired, and I still do, to make sure Black and Brown people know this, so that we are not suffering in silence, that we're not dying prematurely, if we can prevent it. And we can, and we can.
Right.
So New Orleans is an epicenter for Black culture, and it is the perfect place for me and others like yourself to disseminate this knowledge, this wisdom, this ancient technology called yoga and meditation. And it's been such a great fit, even though I don't sound like I'm from here, and I don't dress like I'm from here. And aside from being a proud Black American, like, there are few things that really connect me to New Orleans. But I do have this knowledge, this passion for wellness, for prevention, for breaking traumas, breaking cycles. I've been able to do it myself. And so I want to pass that on to others.
I mean, I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you chose New Orleans. I'm grateful that I chose New Orleans, and I'm grateful to work alongside you here in New Orleans on as a wellness worker. So let's talk about you in particular in this hot yoga situation, right? So I understand that the boy at the time took you to a class, and it was a 90-minute hot yoga class, a Bikram yoga class, right? But why did you continue to choose that? Because there's hatha, there's bhakti, there's vinyasa, right? There are so many different styles, kundalini, ashtanga, for people who are looking at yoga. They're all different types of yoga. Was there a reason why you chose hot yoga for your studio?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons, and part of it is that series was really created with the Western mentality and for the Western kind of diseases that we have here. And so what
Mm.
the heat does, the heat plays various roles, and they're all significant and they're all for our benefit. It's a little misunderstood, and I get it, understandably so, but thankfully, thanks to you and other people, we can take a moment to kind of clarify why the heat. And so if you trace back the origins of yoga, whether you trace it all the way back to Africa or you trace it to Mother India, either way, those two origins are hot and they're humid climates. And
Mm.
so we are trying to replicate the original environment that yoga came from. Heat, as you know, has been a healer. It's been a healing agent for thousands of years, from hot springs to hot tea to hot compresses, hot baths. We're ruled by the sun, right? We're warm-blooded mammals, right? We keep a warm temperature. So heat is a part of our existence, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
a part of our healing for a long time. What the heat does for me, for those who do it, especially for Black and brown people, is it expedites the benefits. So the
Mm.
benefits that you would get from a non-heated yoga class happen 3 or 4 times faster in hot yoga. Again, this is why I say it was designed with the Western mentality in mind. Westerners, time is money. We want results. We have busy lives. We don't have time for things to happen over time. We want to feel better immediately, right? When people, I think they did
Right.
a survey, people take an aspirin and they expect it to work in less than 15 minutes. Like, our tolerance for discomfort and pain is really it's low. It's very
Right.
low. And so what hot yoga does is it gives you these results faster. And because African Americans, we are suffering in such high levels that we need these benefits as soon as possible.
Hmm.
And so that is part of my dedication. And you're right. Like, look, before opening Magnolia, I thought very long and hard about first opening a business, right? Because it's a big commitment. Number two, bringing hot yoga to a hot environment. I was intimidated by that, right? Bringing it to a
Mm.
Black community, right, that is already facing oppression, discrimination, right, all kinds of hardships, and now you're going to ask them to do hot yoga for 90 minutes? Like, it's intolerable, right? It's like you're asking too much, right? And so
You
I
are
really
asking a lot.
Right. And so I really had to think about it. But when I realized that, no, we need this hot yoga because we're facing too much. And so this is an opportunity to clear that as fast as possible so that we can catch up, so we can progress, so we can live long enough to pass on a legacy, to pass on generational wealth. If we're dying too early, which we
Right.
are, then we
Right.
can't pass down the secrets and the finance, because we're dying too early. So
Yeah.
part of that's part of it. Now not all hot yoga is the same, right? Because it's
Yeah.
grown a lot. So the 26 and 2 series in particular that we teach, formerly known as Bikram, is also part of the science. That series is very specific for reasons. It's holistic. Everything gets addressed, every system in the body. So no matter who you are, one person might suffer from high blood pressure, the other person might suffer from arthritis, the other person might suffer from thyroid issues. No matter what your issues are, those 26 postures, because they cover all the systems of the body, all the muscles, all the joints, all the organs, all the glands, your issue is going to be addressed. And so there's that universality. And we get trained to say, to learn that hot yoga is good for, it's like penicillin, it's good for 99% of the population. So there's like 1% of the population that really shouldn't do it and can't do it. But other than that, most people can do it. Do they like doing it? That's a different question,
Right.
but they
Well,
can do it.
so, couple other questions for you, right? So I get it. I bought the Kool Aid. I'm buying what you're selling about hot yoga being good for me. Do you have some specific benefits, like maybe a couple that you could say hot yoga specifically does this? I mean, I heard you say generally that it's good for the muscles, it's good for the digestive tract, whatever. What's it really specific? A couple, two or three benefits.
Yeah, so the mindset, again, going back to the Western mindset, our stress levels are through the roof in this country. Okay. In the Western world, we have huge levels, high levels of stress. So that's the number one thing that the yoga that I can say confidently. Again, a universal concern. We all have stress levels. There's societal stress, there's individual stress. And so, what hot yoga is doing is helping you manage your stress. And I tell people all the time, look, we have brunch plans, we have emergency plans, we have all kinds of plans. But what is your stress management plan? Because you need one. And so what hot yoga does is you're literally sweating out stress hormones. You're literally sweating out cortisol. And so that alone is going to boost your immune system because stress lowers the immune system. And so that alone, removing the stress and the tension that we keep in the body, keep in the brain, etc., is going to boost your immune system. So right there, you're already healthier. Another great benefit is the preventative piece, which is what I really preach and talk about. It has prevented diabetes in my life. I'm almost 47 years old. And when I go to my annual checkups, my doctors clap for me. They salute me. They're so excited for me. They're like, you are galaxies away from diabetes. That didn't just happen because I wanted it to happen. It's on both sides of my family. I'm a Black woman in America living in New Orleans.
Right.
So, like, I have really had to be intentional about making sure I'm not pre diabetic or anything like that. And hot yoga has been the number one formula to my success in preventing diabetes. It's also, again, like I said, holistic. It is very therapeutic. So, for instance, I've been able, like you mentioned in my intro, to heal my asthma. I am asthma free, inhaler free. This is huge. Asthma is like 4 or 5 chronic diseases nationwide. It's also very high here in Louisiana. So I've been able to cross that off the list. Migraines as well. I used to have to go to the emergency room every year for migraines. No more migraines, no more headaches. So it's very therapeutic. It's helped me with my knees as well a lot. I can run across the street. I can jog. And I couldn't do that before. I could not do that before. And so yoga's helped me with that. So the therapeutic benefits. The other thing that it does is because it's so challenging, although the benefits are very rewarding, it's the perfect climate to create incredible community. And
Mm.
community is huge in our wellness. We can't do this alone.
Right.
I've had to rely on you several times to help come in and support and sub and confer with me and consult with me and chat with me because I can't do it alone. We cannot do
Mm.
this alone. So the community that gets formed is phenomenal. Because it's mental health month right now, and because isolation and suicidality and
Mm.
disconnection, like all of this is rampant in our country right now. There are parts of our brain that will shut down if we are not interacting with each other. So that's the other thing that I love about hot yoga is that the level of community, especially at Magnolia, is
Yes.
incredible. It's incredible what it can do for you. And the
You
last
have
thing
to.
I'll share that I recently learned from a nurse friend is the heat shock proteins. And so we know a little bit about cold shock proteins from all those cold plunges that we hear about and the cold showers and stuff. Well, the reverse is available with heat. When you put the body in a stressful environment like hot yoga or like a cold plunge, your body releases these proteins, excuse me, that protect the cells from the brain cells to the heart cells to everyday cells. And so what happens is this is why yogis look younger. This is why yogis last longer because we have more protection. We have these little bodyguards called heat shock proteins
Mm.
that are protecting our everyday cells. And there's some great research on this that's been done in Scandinavia on stroke victims and heart disease victims, how they bounce back so much faster and better because of heat therapy. So these are some of the reasons why I advocate for it. These are reasons that I can, that I've been able to produce for myself. And these are reasons that I encourage people to give it a try.
I have a couple more questions, but I want to add to that. You didn't mention this. Tell me, truth or not, I feel like my bowel function is better when I do yoga, but particularly hot yoga. Is there any benefit for the like gastrointestinal tract or no? Did I make that up?
Oh yeah. I mean that's the other cool thing about it is that the heat speeds up the circulatory system. Most
Okay.
diseases, if you trace them back far enough, Olivia, have to do with poor circulation. From stroke to indigestion to constipation to heart disease, it all, if you trace it back, it's a problem with blood flow. And so if you
Mm,
increase the blood flow, then you decrease the problem. And what's cool about hot yoga too is all that deep breathing you're doing. So not only have you sped up the circulatory system, but now you've filled it up with oxygen. So now it's even more powerful and more effective. And so that's why it's really good for digestion, because you're bringing in oxygenated blood in an area that might be congested, might be, blocked, right? People, again, stress. People deal with stress differently. Some people get indigestion. Some people get headaches. Some people get insomnia. Everybody kind of, the body's different, right?
right.
So absolutely is it great for indigestion, constipation. It's not a problem I've had personally, but it's definitely a problem that is common, that people have gotten a lot of. I had a student tell me recently that she wouldn't go to the bathroom for like up to a week. And every time she came and did class, her bowels, her whole,
Oh,
everything opened up.
right. Right. Like the Mississippi just flowing. Okay. Just a couple of more questions for you. So, are there any myths about hot yoga? Because a lot of times misinformation gets out there about what certain things are and what they're not. Are there any myths about hot yoga that you would like to debunk?
Yeah, so there's a few. Like, so generally speaking, when people are pregnant, whatever you've done, whatever type of modality or exercise you did before you were pregnant, most doctors will support you continuing. Hot yoga is one of those as well. But there have been people over the time that were told by doctors and other people that, like, if they did hot yoga, it would cook the baby.
Right.
And so that's not true. It's not going to cook your baby. Pregnant women, their body temperature can go up slightly. This is true, but generally speaking, this is why the body's phenomenal. The body starts to sweat. As long as you're sweating and you're breathing, hot yoga is safe for you. The minute you stop breathing and the minute you stop sweating, then there's a problem. So we've had many, many successful births, many successful pregnant people come in and do yoga all the way to their last month. We've had people, generally speaking, we ask them, to get clearance from their doctors, and they do. And they get to educate their doctors as well. I think another one is like anyone experiencing menopause. Sometimes people think like, oh, well, I'm already getting hot flashes, so I'm not going to put myself in a hot environment. But it can balance out hormones. That's what yoga is doing. It's helping us balance. So it can also balance out your hormones. It's not so much the hot yoga, but like that yoga is just for men, or excuse me, not for men, or that it's only for skinny people or for white people. Like all of that is untrue.
Right.
Yoga is for everyone.
Good.
Um, the other thing is that most conditions, heart disease, like if you have a heart issue and you want to do hot yoga, it is possible. Again, I will ask you to get to have a conversation with your doctor, with your cardiologist about that. A lot of smart and hip doctors, especially in the bigger cities, do recommend hot yoga to their heart patients. They do recommend it, but there's some people that just don't, some doctors that just don't know the benefits, what it is, etc. So those are some kind of like myths that it's going to cook your baby, that men can't do it, that you have to be fit to start, that if you're in menopause you shouldn't do it. Things like that are just not true. It's kind of on a case by case basis, and generally speaking, most people can still do it.
Wonderful. So, the last question I have for you in this particular episode of Freedom at the Mat is, what can people expect when they come to Magnolia? I mean, you've created a magnificent community and environment, as you've mentioned, and as I know myself. But what can someone who is uninitiated to Magnolia Yoga, what can they expect to experience there?
Yeah, well, we have a way of welcoming people. When you walk in, we see you, we hear you. We do want to know your name. We introduce ourselves to you as well. If you have any injuries, anything going on, you just got a divorce, you just got into a car accident, God forbid. But if you are dealing with any kind of issue like that, your neck, your knees, you just had surgery, anything like that, that's a good time to share that information with your teacher. We may give you a specific recommendation because of that. We may just say, okay, thanks for letting us know. Take it easy, right? But when people walk in, they're going to walk into a positive environment, an environment where they're seen and welcome. It's diverse and inclusive, and that inclusivity, I think, is a big piece. So we introduce you to other people. We want you to feel like you belong there, even if it's your very first time there. And that's part of the process. That's part of the healing. That's part of the community buy-in, is kind of teaching you right from the beginning how we comport ourselves in here. We try to create the most ideal environment so that when you leave there, you leave with that energy. You leave with that visual, that ability, so that you're hopefully replicating that wherever you're going to next.
Ajax, thank you so much for making time for us today. I have certainly been enlightened, and I practice yoga a lot. So, you've definitely enlightened me around many things I didn't know about hot yoga and the benefits of it, and learning more about the why behind your mission and the mission of Magnolia Yoga. For anyone who is watching, if you're in New Orleans, please go to Magnolia Yoga Studio. You're going to have the best experience ever, I promise. And then if you're not, if you're traveling through New Orleans, her location is very near, very adjacent to the French Quarter. Check it out and experience all the benefits of hot yoga and have a much better well-being. May God be with you. Ashe.
You're so high.